All right. Good morning and welcome to Mindfully Gay. I am Jerry,
And I'm John.
and we're here this morning brainstorming on what to talk about.
For the last 10 minutes.
And now I don't remember what we came up with. Um, we're seeing something very interesting in our podcast, and this is going to be happen. You're going to hear this podcast a few weeks from now, but in real time, our kindness podcast has been running for about 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And it has triggered a lot of people. We have some of our video hits that have hit over 2,000 people.
Wow.
On TikTok, people are joining our TikTok page quite abundantly. And I really think it's this podcast that we've touched on something. And so we were talking about, as a therapist, about 75% of my clients are gay men and or trans men. And I was telling John, I can almost predict what they're going to say. They're going to come in. They are disillusioned with the gay lifestyle. They'll see it as superficial. They'll see it as they can't quite fit in.
Right.
They feel dismissed. And consequently, they become quite resentful. And it's interesting, as a therapist, I'm often trying to help people conceptualize some personal responsibility for where they're at,
Right.
and for how they're shaping that experience. And then the other side of it is, as part of what we do with Mindfully Gay and other events, is we're trying to create a venue where guys can come in non-sexualized environments. We both love our sexuality. Sexuality is healthy and beautiful and powerful and fun and scandalous. But we recognize that sometimes everything in our community becomes very centralized around that.
Right.
And so we try to create these events like bowling or a movie night or the retreat. And so even though we know there's a lot of people who are disgruntled about what they're experiencing in their community, it's interesting, the challenge to get people to show up to what they're asking for.
For what they're asking for.
And yeah, and I think that's where we landed. Take it from there, John.
Oh. I think, in looking at that, we were going to integrate a little bit about just kind of the process of, getting older or being mature gay men, queer men in the community, and what we've seen, what we've gone through, what we experience, and what we tend to still expect. I think, even after, if you've been out for a long time, let's say, I think there's still this narrative of just what you experience with your clients that come to see you, this disillusionment with their community and over-sexualized situations, et cetera, the list goes on. And we're still kind of stuck in that, even if you've been out for a while. And I'm wondering, the role, I guess, of people like us. I mean, we're getting up there in age. He's like, speak for yourself. Is there an expectation of us? Are we falling into the trap of what's expected or what we think is expected in the gay community? And if we are or not, like what we do on this podcast, what are some of those remedies, or what are some of the antidotes to, I guess, overcoming some of these expectations that can be harmful, I think, for just just regular socialization in the gay community. Because when I was thinking about some of this, I was thinking about my own role, and just, yes, at the time of this airing of this podcast, I will have just turned 57.
Oh.
And so I'm getting closer to 60, which I'm really excited about. But I think part of my excitement about getting older is that my chronological age, or when people are surprised, and I like to surprise people, and say, how old do you think I am? When people ask my age, oh, you look 40 something, or oh gosh, you look 30 something, or like, thank you, that there's this. I think there's still this desire to look younger and to be younger.
Younger is where the privilege is.
Younger is where the privilege is. And I think that's a great way of saying that, because I think I fall into the trap of, when one gets older, the value of, aging and just goes down. But there's such this priority around, looking young, being young, and certainly looking a certain way, like you were saying, how you present, how you show up, what you look like, when you show up anywhere, the gym, grocery store, wherever.
It's interesting you're saying that, because, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, when I was hitting when I started hitting 57, I was prepping for 60. And, had had my walker picked out, had, my cardigan sweaters all lined up for summer wear. But I really, my body wasn't quite right. My health wasn't so great. And that's really where Nick got introduced into our lives.
Yeah.
And boy, as a nutritionist and a trainer, and it was interesting, even though I was doing everything he was asking me to do and I was seeing the progress, what started coming up was the baggage associated with becoming older, and thinking that even today, not so much today, but I'm at the gym and I'm doing the things I'm doing in the gym, I think, well, who my age is doing this shit?
Yeah,
right?
I do the same thing.
Yeah. But I realized I had to kind of break out of that mindset of, one of my existential dilemmas is, am I even relevant in the gay community anymore? I've had a pretty relevant role in this community here in Utah for a while. And I think I started dismissing myself before anyone else could.
Oh, wow.
Because of the baggage that I was carrying, and kind of the cultural saturated concept of aging, gay and aging. And I kind of was putting myself out to pasture. And quite frankly, Nick's a really good trainer and a really good nutritionist, but he kind of grabbed me by the collar and shook me around a bit and got me to re-examine the stories I carried around myself.
Well, what was that narrative, if you could share? What was that narrative you were carrying about aging, and just you personally? What was?
Aging is about, this is where your body breaks down. This is where the aches and pains start. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just how it shows up. You're not relevant in the gay community anymore because you're an old voice, and they want new and up and coming voices. Certainly, who's going to find you sexually interesting? And all of that has been this really interesting. Once I began to identify the stories that I was carrying and trying to challenge it with myself, it's interesting how my experience with other people shifted dramatically. And so much so that by the time I hit 60, I was just like, oh, I got my second wind. Watch out, bitches.
Yeah, right.
Right. But it took several years to work through it.
What were some of the things that did shift? If you were not going out to pasture, where are you going now? What's the new path?
I think of this as a time of rebranding.
Mm-mm.
Um, I've certainly have rebranded the relationship with my body and my
Yeah.
sexuality.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there has been a physical transformation. I would tell people I'm in the best shape today than I have ever been in my entire life.
Wow.
And there have been times in my life where I've been in good shape and carried around maybe a lot of stories of shame. It's interesting at this point in my life, I've been able to really look at that more constructively. And I'm maybe a little bit different when I see myself faced with a particular challenge or fear or inhibition. I will intentionally go after it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting ready to do a photo shoot,
Mm-hmm.
like one of those photo shoots. And it has me scared out of my mind. And I'm just trying to envision myself coming out of it feeling um, happy and complete and satisfied that I faced that fear and stepped into it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, the narrative with the photographer is you make all these young boys look good, make me look good.
Mm.
And all the other photographers said no, but this one guy, Andrew,
Mm-hmm.
said, let's do it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one piece. I think the other rebranding has been embracing. I believe in the process of continued growth and self-examination. I also recognize that at this point in my life, I also represent a sense of eldership and elderhood. And I think that's something our gay community is sorely lacking because we are probably one of the most ageist community
Mm-hmm.
that I'm aware of.
Yes. Wow.
And so I think finding that relevance. And what's interesting is I meet with a lot of young people, and frequently they're asking, where are the ones that came before us?
Really?
And oh yeah. Oh yeah, there is a sense of people are looking for not just daddies, but they're looking for daddies with experience,
Mm-hmm.
daddies that can provide counsel and direction.
Yeah.
And and in my experience with working with a lot of older folks is how ingrained in their mentality is the belief that they are not relevant.
Yeah.
And so I think they self-select out.
Mm.
And I would love to see the queer community, and I think Mindfully Gay, we're embracing this, having like cross-cultural interactions.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, I think that's critical. So I don't know, off the top of my head, those are a couple places that pop
Yeah,
up.
I like that rebranding because I think that's another way of saying changing the narrative, changing your own personal story and how you see yourself, most importantly, and how you see your path, moving forward. And what I also hear with that is having a purpose, because when you go out to pasture, it's like you're finished. Like I'm done with whatever, and you just kind of go out and just you don't become relevant anymore. But like you said, with a rebranding, I think there's a repurposing, and start to see that, oh, I am of value, I am relevant, and I have a purpose. And I mean, I know you very well. I mean, in the number of things that you do that make you very relevant to numerous communities, including the gay community. And so, I mean, you have very very direct and important purpose. um, and so I wish that on people who may feel like they don't have purpose, especially those that, well, even like the young people who are maybe asking you or asking others, who came before me, because I get a sense that they don't have a foundation
Yeah.
of like where they came from or even how they got here with all the privileges and everything, of being, you can come out, as a young gay person, for example, um, but really nothing solid to stand on, or even a platform to jump off of, really, to like, oh, I want to do that, or I have purpose and I want, and finding something that's going to be relevant in for myself, most importantly, but maybe for my community. So I think there's that piece, And I work with a lot of gentlemen um, who came out late in life. Um, the average age probably of some of the guys that I work with is probably 50 something. So I see guys in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, and like I said, they came out later in life. Um, and I think what they're finding with some of my classes is they're rebranding, they're finding purpose. Part of it is physical, that they see that, oh, I can look different and be different and be accepted, and that's a good thing because they are accepted. And then they also are really shifting gears as far as their mentality around who I could be in the world, because they were feeling lost when they came out. They may have been married and maybe now divorced or some variance of that, with relationships, maybe kids and grandkids, and just kind of maneuvering through that. And some are finding ways to really kind of stand up for themselves,
Mhm.
finding a solid foundation to stand on so they can really be themselves. And I think, age and mature in a positive way, that one, they can be accepted maybe by their peers or even their ex-spouses or current spouses, but even to the point where that doesn't even need to matter. What really matters is that I love myself and I accept myself,
Mm.
and can find this, and now I have this new freedom and can move forward. So lots of different ways, but just kind of going back to my main point was that rebranding and
Right.
repurposing.
Well, I- I'm having a couple of thoughts. It's interesting. You mentioned rainbow and community, and that kind of stuck in my head for a minute
Mm-hmm.
because I think, isn't it interesting? Do you know what color's missing in the rainbow flag?
Pink? No.
No, it's there. Gray.
Gray.
We've added black and brown
Yeah.
for our
Mm-hmm.
friends of color. We've added representation for trans identities.
Right, yeah.
But I think it's, as I was just listening to it, I thought, where's gray?
Mm-hmm.
We have to redesign the rainbow
We
flag
need
once
another
again. We'll just make it wallpaper.
And why gray? What why?
I'm just thinking maybe silver, maybe to represent aging.
Got you.
Because I think it's these subtle little pieces. But here's where I'm going to go with this concept. It's not just to say let's redesign the flag, because please, I like the original. But the rainbow flag, right, was meant to be a symbol of inclusion. And we frequently, even in this conversation, I'm becoming really conscious of how frequently we're referencing community.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, in this concept of community, there are people, as inclusive as we like to think we are, there are lots of people who are feeling marginalized in the context of that communal experience.
Yeah.
And whether it's self-invented or communally not addressed, I think aging shows up in that.
Yeah.
I think we celebrate. I have friends in the business, but I think it's interesting that anyone who does porn becomes a porn star. Like, really?
Even if they just have an OnlyFans page.
Can I be a therapist star?
Yeah.
A shaman star?
A yoga star?
But isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That if you do porn, you are now part of an exclusive part of the community. I think we use the word community, and I'm reflecting on my travels, having worked with all these different indigenous societies.
Yeah.
For instance, if I go to the reservation in Idaho, their eldership is highly revered amongst the traditional in this case, Shoshone folks, but I've seen it with Lakota, Shoshone, Blackfeet, Ute, any Native community that I've been a part of. Relationship with grandparents and elders is highly esteemed.
Yeah.
And it's esteemed from this place of they bring with them a tradition, they bring with them history, they bring with them language. In some cases, some of these Native communities are literally one generation from losing their language.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Right? But I will watch how the young people interact with their elders. And if an elder says, there is obedience.
Yeah, they're on it. Yep.
In Mongolia.
Right.
I remember being in a yurt in Mongolia. A shaman was at the front of the room doing what the shaman does. And this old woman, who probably was between 80 to 90 years old, came into the yurt. And literally, because there was probably 30 people in this yurt and we're all sitting on the ground. But when that elder walked in, the tradition is when the shaman is doing what they do, your head cannot be above theirs. So you're literally on the ground, especially if they're sitting.
Right.
But when that older woman came in and she went to get on her hands and knees, the shaman said, no, you've earned the right to walk in here. And that room just spread wide open to accommodate that elder. Everywhere I'm thinking, and what I'm suggesting is more cultures with deeper history and longer history, if you will, have come to appreciate and create space in their community for the elders and to hold them to some esteem and purpose. And I think in a westernized society, right, we're so indoctrinated and addicted to the concepts of capitalism, right, that once you retire and stop participating in the systems of capitalism, suddenly your relevance and importance in the community becomes diminished.
Yeah, definitely. Capitalism, and I want to throw in the word just kind of individualism. You're forced in a way to, to be an individual, to be on your own, to stand out. And that, alludes to kind of lack of community in a way, right?
Well, and just think about what's happening politically. What we've lost is our eldership in politics. Right? And in the context of that, right, comes a process of mentorship. I'm talking about this in generalized community, but then if I bring the focus into the gay community, right? A lot of young queer folks, when I talk to them about the 80s and HIV, they're oblivious. If I get HIV, I just take a pill. Right, but when we talk about our particular form of genocide, which was the AIDS epidemic, that is complete foreign history to them. When we talk about marriage equality happened in 2013, and people act like it's always been there. I'm ranting.
Which is fine. Because it's making me think of, as you went from kind of that broader perspective and looking at different, traditions and cultures, et cetera, that really have a very community where you see that eldership highly respected. It's very visible. It's highly, it's practice. You see it, you feel it, you sense it. And it's what makes me think, have we as a gay community, air quotes, have we ever had that? Have we ever had something similar to that where, I don't want to say hierarchy, but just I don't know. I don't even know what to say. And
do we have an infrastructure that is inclusive?
Bottom line.
Think about how indigenous societies, and I'll just pick on Native Americans for a moment. The concept of the medicine wheel is represented by a circle.
Right.
And that circle has different parts to it that represent the directions. And there are life lessons included in all parts of the medicine wheel.
Mm-hmm.
But in its most generalized concept of the medicine wheel, it's about everything in the wheel has purpose and is sacred. And because it has purpose and is sacred, it has a place. So when we talk about two-spirited people having been integrated in non-colonized native communities, if you think about it, life was not to be wasted.
Right.
And okay, you may not be taking the traditional male form, but okay, so you take care of the kids, or you be our spiritual guide, right? But all life was included and seen as sacred. And so built, and it's very similar in nomadic Mongolian culture in South America, where I've worked with, again, this concept of the wheel and all life being sacred goes to show why people were not expendable.
Yeah.
People were not disposable.
Right.
They were vital resources. And the community came together to support each other's vitalness.
Oh, gosh. I'm going to get chills just thinking of that.
Right? Imagine if, take our rainbow flag and let's create it into a circle of inclusivity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it means something. Because now you bring 57 years of experience that this 20-year-old does not have. And I sometimes listen to what's happening in gay activism, and I think they're recreating what's already been laid out, and they're acting like it's an original.
Right.
You know, here in South, I'm going to toot my own fucking horn.
Go for it.
In Utah, in the early 90s, I dared to create Pride counseling.
Yes.
And every colleague I have said that, even queer colleagues, that is professional suicide.
Yep. I remember that.
And there were gay and lesbian providers, but they went by their names and their reputation kind of supported their business. But I wanted something visible. And anyone who worked with me had to accept living in that glass house. And we created Pride Counseling. I had an APRN. I had like 7 therapists.
Yeah. We
We had interns. I was working with students, trying to teach them how to provide competent, affirmative care for queer folks. I remember in our transgender health components, we had one doctor in Salt Lake City
Wow.
who was questionable and was the best we could do. Right? Now everyone's gay and lesbian affirmative therapy, which I'm fine with. Although I look at what they're doing and I think, well, just because you're gay and lesbian doesn't mean you know what you're doing. Right? It's helpful, but what's your training, what's your experience, what's your process? But I think it's just interesting. Everyone thinks they've created this original thing. I'm like, bitches, where were you in the 90s?
Right.
When, you know, every other phone call I got was some angry pastor, or ecclesiastical leader. People were, I'd have parents. I mean, I got a lot of negative energy.
Oh, yeah.
I just gobbled it up and spit it back out.
You got a lot of pushback.
But I often think, what would have happened in Salt Lake City if there had been this collaborative effort around mental health care? If these folks who are so busy trying to create their own centers now even cared enough to find out what's the history of mental health in this valley, what are how do we create that collaboration? I see this happening in our activism debates. I see it happening in our relationship, right? What I see happening in our transgender community here in Utah, and I see them, you know, in deep, profound fear.
Yes.
And I like to just tell them, I said, I get it. We've been there. This is where gay and lesbian issues were 30 years ago. And here's how you get there. get off of Facebook, get off of social media, go show up at the Capitol, make your voices relevant, right? And they're like, I have to get off my chair? No.
Do something, put my phone down.
I guess what I'm just, right, we're missing a valuable piece of information and relationship and mentorship because everyone's so busy trying to be at the top of the game that, it's kind of like when we have, we've done this with people of color.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Where we're creating solutions to issues, but we haven't invited them to the table to be part of the conversation.
Hello.
Well, invite your elders.
Invite your elders. Mm-hmm.
All right, I think we're done here now. No.
I love the symbol of the circle and what it represents in these indigenous cultures, in particular. You talked about the sacred, the value, the relevance, and everyone has a part, everyone has a say, and I'm trying to, because those are lessons that everyone really needs to follow. I mean, the natives of this nation, really could have, set the standard for how we acted and behaved as a American nation. My point being, how do we find those parallels? If we were to recreate, like you said, okay, here's a symbol of a flag, let's make it a circle. What are some of the next steps of matching sacredness, matching relevance, matching maturity, matching eldership and mentorship? Is there a way to do that in 2026? Or is it out the window? Are we at a loss here, or?
No.
Okay.
I can't even phantom embracing the idea of a loss.
Neither can I. But what are some of those things that we can do? Because I think there's an action, not just say or think, but do.
Yeah. I talked a little bit about this photo shoot, right? And I've done this with other things, but this is what's looming in my mind right now. Is, what I've done some really interpersonal deep work, and with that has come this transformation of how I do food and nutrition, exercise, and getting in shape. And every time I go to the gym, especially when Nick changes to workout, I really have to look at that workout and begin to visualize myself doing exercises that I'm not familiar with and trusting that the outcome is going to take me to where I want to go.
Yes. Right.
I've achieved a particular aesthetic and look that has eluded me my entire life. And whether other people like it or not, I could give a flying fuck. But I'm happy with it. And I thought, I want to capture this. I've always been intrigued with like the modeling process and performing arts and what have you. And I see these pictures, and I've always seen myself outside of that paradigm. And Andrew called my bluff. And it's okay. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, step into the ring.
And so we've had these conversations, and we've talked a little bit about what I feel confident doing, what I feel anxious about doing, and even had conversations about that won't happen.
Sure.
for boundary reasons or what have you. And I'm supported by friends who are encouraging me and supporting me. But ultimately, I'll have to kind of step into that arena and kind of face my fear, face my anxiety. And the way I'm doing that is I'm imagining myself going in there with ease, comfort, flow, and I'm visualizing myself finishing that experience feeling satisfied
Mm-hmm.
and ecstatic.
Mm-hmm. Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Because I think you're nailing some of the fine points that I think we can, certainly um, teach and talk about with our listeners out there and just people in general. Because, like you said, when people come to your office, you know what they're going to say. And we've also talked about, there's this expectation of, how the gay community is going to act, and feel resentful after the fact, right? And so they're already putting a negative, endpoint
Yeah.
to the experience that they haven't even had yet.
They're visualizing exactly what they're going to get.
Yes. So they're manifesting.
Right. Yeah.
They're manifesting it, right?
Good job. You are powerful.
Right. Well, I was like, yeah, you can certainly, and I'm sure you do this because I know you. It's like, well, if you want to call that in, absolutely, go ahead, right? Just go ahead and do that and see if you like that or not. Is that what you want?
Just keep paying me.
Just keep.
No.
Yeah. Yet you're challenging that with your own personal experience, knowing that, okay, there's some nervousness, there's some anxiety, past history stuff, all the things, yet you're doing the work of visualizing the endpoint that you would desire to have, rather than just, going out to pasture. Oh, it's not going to work, it's going to be awful, or I would never do that. It's, no, I'm going to come out of this experience feeling more confident, more alive, awakened. I'll learn something new about myself, all the things, right? And so that's what you're creating. That's the new narrative. And each time, because I'm thinking about how I would do the same thing, a very similar thing, if when those negative thoughts start to peek into my brain, I have to counter it with, nope, wait, pause. I'm shooting for a different outcome than that. That's old stuff. That's old story stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm shooting for something new and different, or just more desirable than the old stuff. And because I think if we can kind of forecast in a positive way the endpoint, what would you like to happen when you go to that social event? What would you like to have happen when you go to the bar? What would you like to have happen after that retreat?
Yeah. The point I was trying to make with the story is similar to that. But I think first and foremost, what I'm suggesting, and you've seen this throughout my life, if there is something that's intimidating or fearful, I'm inclined to pause for a moment and then fully engage it beyond my discomfort. So like this photo shoot, this is not a typical Jerry Bowie weekend afternoon.
Right.
And I'm doing the personal work to consider myself outside of the old story.
Yeah.
And I'm seeking to create something new by deliberately engaging the thing I have anxiety about.
Yes.
I'm thinking about the first time we did a Queer Spirit Lodge. Do you remember when we were sitting in the lodge and it occurred to me that nobody would know the songs?
Oh yeah, and like you would have to sing.
I had a huge phobia of singing in public. And when I was learning Lodge, I was learning it with a community that knew the songs. So all I have to do is get the song started and it's good. And you and I were sitting in the lodge getting it ready and it's like, nobody knows the songs. John, do you know the songs?
No. If you sing them.
And I remember sitting in that lodge just really calibrating my attitude and mindset to go into something that was deeply fearful. Back when I started Pride counseling in the 90s, I got asked to do a lot of public speaking. And that was a huge phobia. I don't even know why I accepted the invitation, but I do know the day of the talk, I was in the bathroom throwing up and
Oh
shitting all over the
no.
place.
Oh
I was
no.
and I was like, God, get a grip, Bowie. And it occurred to me that I was stepping into this incredibly unknown space, and I had to do my work in that moment
Yes.
to put my mind in
Mhm.
the place of getting what I wanted.
Yes, getting what you want. Mm-hmm.
And I'm suggesting that a lot of us in our community have become very complacent about somebody else making our world comfortable enough.
For us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to what happens when I go in and create my own reality?
Right.
What happens when I embrace a mantra, an affirmation that promotes me becoming and stepping into the existence that I claim I'm hungry for?
Hungry for, that you deserve, that you desire, all those things. And we've touched on this in other ways, and it shifts something physiologically, what's the word?
Neuroplasticity
Yeah,
is all
right.
about this.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. Because if you're facing those fears and those challenges, and you get to the other side of that, you've changed. You know, new synapses have been fired, and all that stuff.
Have you seen the research? There's a part of the brain that when we engage things we don't like to do,
Mm.
that it strengthens the part of our brain towards resolve.
Wow.
And so, like, if I like to go running every morning,
Mm-hmm.
it does nothing for my brain.
Yeah.
If I hate running
Yeah.
and do it,
Do it. Yeah.
I'm developing that part of my brain.
Yep.
Right. And so I think that's interesting insight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I also want to say it can be a process. You don't necessarily have to just jump in, the deep end. I don't run, so I'm going to start running because I hate it, so I'm going to start doing it. You don't have to do it that way. It could be a slow process, but it can be a process nonetheless. Of maybe I should think about running. Maybe it's just a thought. It's a contemplation. It's an intrigue, and that begins that cycle or pathway, and even forming new neurological pathways. That's the word I was looking for. For eventually getting into those sneakers and and taking a run or a jog or whatever. But even when it's that, it might just be a little jog and then you walk. But it could be a slow process up to the point where, hey, I'm running a half marathon or something. But I think that can be with a lot of things, even things that we may even just take for granted or really don't think much of, like going to a place where you feel that you feel intimidated in going to. Um, I think about, because I go to the gym at a certain time of night, and the people that I tend to see um, are people who probably are people who would not go at other peak hours of the gym. They're deconditioned. They may have this is their first time maybe at the gym, or they don't go very often or something. This is my story about them. I don't know. Um, and but in my head, I'll say to myself as if I'm talking to them. I'll say, "You go, girl," or "You're here. Look at you," because they are here and they're sweating and they're pushing hard and they're doing the thing. Something got them there. Because it maybe it wasn't hard, but I'm just guessing or assuming it probably was a process of getting in through those doors just and get on that treadmill, for example. But why not when you come to a retreat or even just a social event with other gay people there? Can you put aside what you think is going to happen and integrate what you want to happen?
Be in the moment. And part of the moment is I think part of where I was going with the whole photography story, right, is it had to start within myself
Yeah.
first. I had to really challenge my own personal stories that were holding me back
Yeah.
from health, holding me back from getting in shape, holding me back from finding confidence,
Mm.
holding me back in terms of, am I relevant,
Mm.
right? And then when the invitation shows up to do something outside of my generalized habitual way of living life, right? Instead of running from it, to say, why not?
Mm-hmm.
Why not see where this takes you? What will it open up for you? I mean, I think about my whole path with shamanism.
Mm-hmm.
I came from a very rigid Mormon concept of life.
Mm.
And so every time I was going to a different ritual or ceremony or process, right, I had to wrestle with what the old story was and begin to play with the idea of a new story, a new rebranding.
A rebranding.
And it's funny when I meet people back from my Mormon days and they know what I do now, they're like, who are you?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
and I
Right.
hear
Yeah.
that as a compliment.
Sure. Oh, yeah. I would too. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you're a different person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, and I think just going back to this question of community and relevance,
Mm-hmm.
are there a lot of systemic stories and images of ageism
Mm.
that are cultural and then even become more consolidated in the gay community? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But they don't change because we're sitting back and complaining about them.
Right.
They change because we take our own inventory and our own examination,
Mm.
and then we dare to insert ourselves into the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And right, that was kind of the question that started this,
Yeah.
is we insert ourselves into the relevance of the process. I remember when I started my practice, transgender was not even really a word that was used.
Mm-mm.
It may have been used in academic circles, but it wasn't kind of a common word.
No.
But I do remember people who were transgender showing up at meetings and community processes that were gay and lesbian,
Yeah.
and asserting
Yeah.
their value into the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it got kickback.
Mm-hmm. At first, right. Yeah.
And now
Mm.
it is a vibrant, strong voice
Mm-hmm.
that, despite the current administration, is making gains. But it's because they asserted their relevance. They came out of the closet. They got into their treatments. They asserted their relevance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would suggest that each and every individual in our community that may feel marginalized, that it's not just about putting on the mantle of martyr, that I have to take that personal inventory and consider, how am I colluding with the general narrative?
Right.
And when do I rebel from that?
Mm-hmm.
And assert myself in a way that there has to be room at the table for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. I like that way of thinking and processing, because it is about asserting yourself, inserting yourself into the circles, so your voice can be heard.
Look at what we're doing with Mindfully Gay.
Right. Right.
I mean, and I've said this, we're challenging a cultural norm by suggesting, could we include mind and spirit into the dialogue? Can we get beyond body and sex for a minute and include these other components? And at first people are like, huh?
Mm-hmm.
But when I start looking at like, we're striking a nerve.
Yeah. Yeah. We're shaking things up.
And and I want to reiterate, you and I are having a conversation
Mm-hmm.
based on our personal and professional experiences, not as authorities. We're having a conversation. And if this does nothing more than piss people off so they can gossip about it at brunch, we've done our job.
Then we've done our job, because that's part of,
Because then they're talking
because
about
they're
it.
talking about it, and that's, we're doing that insertion. We're dropping the pebble into the puddle, and there's this ripple effect. However one might respond to it, whether it's very positively or even rather negatively, something has been triggered, something has been sparked, where perhaps it gets them, thinking in a different way, challenging what we've said, having conversations with other people, having conversations with themselves in regards to certain things, maybe starting to see things very differently. Maybe I could be doing that. Maybe I can try that. Maybe I could go to that social event. Maybe I should show up to that retreat. I might learn something or share something. I've got something to share, something to contribute to this circle of what I would like to call an inclusive gay community.
Yeah. Do you know, we've seen this with Mindfully Gay, but I love doing group therapy and group processes. And I've just come to the conclusion that person who is being really, really quiet, if I just say, John, what are you thinking about this? And if they're given the floor, some amazing gemstone will fly out of their mouth.
Yes.
And it often can shift the trajectory of the groupthink.
Right.
And so, we should ask AI to come up with a rainbow flag that is done in a circle and would have inclusivity on all these different
components. Yeah.
That's your assignment.
Okay.
That just stresses me.
I'll play with that one.
Yeah, if I know we're kind of coming to the end here, but I'm just thinking, if I were creating an affirmation around this conversation, it would be something about, I see myself as a powerful, contributing member of a growing and evolving community. And there's this meme I keep seeing. It's from a movie, but this woman says, wisdom is old men planting trees in whose shade they will never share.
Yeah.
And we're all doing that. What we're doing will bless the teens of today. And what they will end up doing as they tell our stories is they will be creating shade for the future after them.
Absolutely.
Right? If we get consumed about what's happening today, we lose the focus for tomorrow. And for those elders and people who are sitting home feeling like they're not a part of something, first of all, come and be part of us.
Yeah.
But second of all, I'm willing to bet that there are people out there who are hungry for what you have to say, who are hungry to hear your stories.
Absolutely.
And you have to trust in the relevance and the sacredness of your life and experience. And if you can't leave your house, do a journal. Create I do these video things where I just videotape my thoughts or ideas, and someday, somewhere, somebody's going to make a lot of money off my book.
See, I like that, because it's about, what you can do. What can you do? Ask yourself, what can you do? We certainly have an episode way back when we talked about our gay blessings and gifts. And I like coming back to that, because I think part of this process is maybe sitting down with yourself. It's like, what are my traits? What are my attributes? What are my blessings? What are the gifts that I have? And you can even just start with, maybe it's, maybe you're good at archery. Maybe you're good at writing. Maybe you're good at photography. Just, what do you like, and what do you feel like you're good at? That might be your gift to share to a group or your community or whatever. Because I think start there. If you feel like, oh, I can't, what do I say? What do I contribute? It may not always have to be, some declaration or some literal voice, saying something. Maybe you have another talent. Maybe it's a musical talent or something, or a writing talent that you just want to get out there and just share. You might inspire someone. There's your mentorship.
Yeah.
You might inspire someone. I didn't know I could do that. I can be that. I can do that. If a young person sees you, painting or doing photography or pottery or something, I can do that too. Absolutely. Because I think there's certainly this thing, and we see this in these cultural communities where everything is valued and sacred, right? Where I think what we get lost with is feeling like, oh, I have nothing to contribute. Oh, I can't, that. Just poo-poo it all, right? But to know that you really do have something to share and contribute to the tapestry of this inclusive, if we want to call it that, inclusive gay community. That's it. I mean,
Amen. Well, I hope this has been food for thought. It's interesting. I don't know that we went where I thought we were going to go, but it got really interesting. Yeah. See what happens when we do it next door to the Juju room. All right. Well, we are always curious on what people are thinking. We got some really great feedback on Facebook and Instagram about the kindness episode, but we want to hear what you guys are thinking, and so certainly make comments when you see something that triggers you, and certainly share. It occurred to me that a lot of people are sharing the kindness episode, so please share.
Please share.
You can find us on Instagram at mindfully_gay. TikTok, we're Mindfully Gay. Facebook, we have a Mindfully Gay group that is growing. Mm-hmm. We have a retreat coming up mid to late March in Heber, Utah, around radical self-acceptance.
And I think based on this conversation, a lot of things that we're talking about here is going to show up there during this retreat.
So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon at Mindfully Gay.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Mindfully Gay podcast. If you enjoyed our conversation today, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. This way you won't miss out on any of our upcoming episodes, where we continue to explore fascinating topics and share meaningful stories. Your support means the world to us. See you in the next episode.